Admiral Davidson, thank you for your appearance again here today. Thanks for your service to our nation. I want to talk a little bit about the balance of power in the Western Pacific when it comes to missiles. For decades, the United States belonged to something called the INF Treaty, which prohibited us and Russia, the only two parties, from building ground-based intermediate-range missiles, roughly speaking like 300 to 3,000 miles of range. China was never a party to this. That's why they've stockpiled thousands of these missiles that, as you've testified, can threaten not only our allies in places like Taiwan and Japan and South Korea, but also our own troops and citizens in places like Guam and other islands in the Western Pacific. We finally left the INF Treaty a couple years back, in part because Russia was cheating on it for years, in part because of this imbalance of power. How important is it that the United States continues to build up our missile forces so that we can hold China in deterrence and at risk in the Western Pacific?
I think it's very important, Senator. I think a wider base of long-range precision fires, which are enabled by all our terrestrial forces, not just sea and air, but by land forces as well, is critically important to stabilizing what is becoming a more unstable environment in the Western Pacific. I've been encouraged by the enthusiasm by the Army and the Marine Corps to embrace some of the capabilities that Navy and Air Force have already developed. I think that is a low-cost way to quick capability that can be, fielded potentially in the region, and I think we ought to stay after it. I say to people all the time, missile defense is the hardest thing we do. And if I'm the manager of a baseball team, I can have the best defenses in the world, but if I can't score some runs, I can't win the game. We've got to have offensive capabilities that threaten, that cause a potential adversary to think twice about any malign activities that they might take in the region militarily. And that's where offensive fires come to play.
And to drive this home again, the importance of ground-based precision fires. The Navy and the Air Force have great capabilities, but you can only put so many missiles on a ship or on an aircraft. Ground-based fires allow you to build up the stockpile the same way China has done on its mainland, where they have thousands of missiles aimed at Taiwan or Japan or Guam, and that's one reason why it's so important to continue to build up those ground-based fires. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator. The U.S. fights as a joint force, and long-range precision fires delivered to the ground force, I think, are critically important to enhance the maneuver and positional advantage of U.S. forces in the theater.
Let's turn from missiles to payloads. Do you agree with Admiral Richard at Strategic Command that China could triple or even quadruple its nuclear weapons stockpile in the years ahead?
Yes, sir, I do.
And presumably, if they're going to build all those nuclear warheads, they're also going to build the delivery systems for those warheads as well, correct?
Yes, sir. They've quadrupled their nuclear capability since the turn of the century, and they will at least double it during the course of this decade. And I've seen the same estimates that Admiral Richard is talking about. Whereas
the United States, because we just gave a no-strings-attached extension to the New START Treaty, is limited to 800 deployed nuclear weapons. So China, unconstrained by this treaty, if they triple or quadruple their stockpile, could possibly have nuclear overmatch against the United States before the end of this decade. Is that correct?
If they were to quadruple their stockpile, yes, sir.
And when you combine the strategic forces of both Russia and China, then they certainly would have overmatch against the United States when it comes to our nuclear arsenal.
Yes, Senator.
It is very expensive and hard work to win an arms race, but it is much better to win an arms race than to lose a war.